people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. I'm sure most of you have heard by now the Matchroom versus Queensberry 5-for-5 tournament. The 5-for-5 card has been officially announced. Most of the fights we more or less knew.
We had some idea.
Very good fights, all of them competitive and tough to edge, which really is when boxing is at its best, when the outcome isn't quite clear and you're not sure, you don't know. You have to tune in to see
Watch
what happens.
The first thing I want to say is that this is a beautiful thing.
Particularly for the British boxing scene that has wanted this or something like it for a very long time. The long-standing rivalry between Matchroom and Queensberry, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn.
Now it's here.
The encouraging news that this tournament won't even be the only one of its kind. This is just the beginning.
Ow!
The one fight I feel settled on is the Raymond Ford versus Nick Ball fight, because I feel like I've seen enough from Raymond that he has the right amount of brains and brawn to weather the storm from Nick Ball, that he'll fight him off, he'll be able to fight him off when he needs to fight him off and box him when he needs to box him. He's a little taller, he's a little longer.
I think Raymond Ford wins that fight.
But that's just about the only fight in the tournament that I'm settled on. The rest of them, it just feels like anything could happen when you think about Craig Richards and Willie Hutchinson. Ammo Williams versus Hamza Shiraz. A battle of the unbeatens.
I've seen a lot of Ammo Williams over the years, enough that I know that he's consistently inconsistent.
16-0 to the more statuesque and physically imposing Hamza Shiraz, who's 19-0. Very similar level of experience and a very similar place in their careers. I don't think a loss hurts either guy, if either guy loses, being honest with you.
I don't.
The boxing community at large, for the most part, is waking up from the haze of the previous era that placed so much emphasis on the unbeaten record.
The Mayweather era.
Which sparked a lot of safe matchmaking and careful decisions made in the best interests of preserving the unbeaten record, and that's
boring.
Hardly interesting.
Mundane.
Let's liven things up a bit with a battle of the unbeatens in the men's middleweight division that sorely needs a shot in the arm and new blood.
Fresh faces.
I can't tell you here and now who wins that fight. That's going to take some thought, as well as the Filip Hrgovic versus Daniel Dubois fight. I love this fight. I love what it could mean. Filip Hrgovic, who I've been watching for a very long time, he has yet to wow me, yet to impress me. Daniel Dubois has impressed me a lot more in his last fight than Filip has in any fight I've ever seen him in. But Filip, he is the amateur standout. He is the bronze medalist here.
The Olympian.
And Daniel doesn't move his fucking head. It's like a toilet bolted to the floor. It's bolted to his neck. A persistent jab from Filip Hrgovic could disassemble Daniel Dubois in all the ways Joe Joyce's persistent jab disassembled Daniel Dubois. It's something to think about, that Filip's style. It's nothing eye-catching. Nothing really jumps out at you, but a persistent jab could do a lot of damage.
Less is more.
Daniel, comparatively, seems more explosive to me. Perhaps he packs a bigger punch, though when the men are this size, anybody can knock anybody out if they get in clean.
Yeah.
Daniel's punches seem snappier to me. There's more on them. He's more explosive, whereas Filip seems a lot more stiff, a lot more robotic, but he's a very big guy and he's well schooled, so I don't want to underestimate him ahead of this match.
You see what I mean?
These are tough matchups, tough fights to edge, and of course, Deontay Wilder, who was rumored to be going into business with Matchroom to represent them against Zhilei Zhang, who will be representing Queensberry. Another tough fight to edge. It may not seem that way based on Wilder's last performance, but that was Joseph Parker. This is Zhilei Zhang.
Right.
This is an older guy and a bigger target. a southpaw.
Pay attention.
Even though Zhilei Zhang did a lot better against Joseph Parker than Deontay Wilder did, triangle theories don't work. You have to keep that in mind. That even though Zhang did better against Parker than Wilder did, that doesn't necessarily mean Zhang beats Wilder.
Why not?
You have to go back to why it was Joseph Parker beat Deontay Wilder. I think punch for punch, Zhilei Zhang is a much bigger puncher than Joseph Parker.
Yeah.
I do. But it wasn't having a big punch that allowed Parker to beat Wilder. It was activity. It was volume.
It was coming forward, throwing punches and bunches. It wasn't all on a single shot, a single punch, a hard punch. No, it was because he was busier than Wilder, and that flustered Wilder.
And tack on that he's a noticeably shorter fighter than Deontay, which makes for a smaller target that's bending at the waist and bending at the knees and shooting the looping right.
Where Zhang is eye level.
This is a bigger target that doesn't throw as many punches in a round. That granted, Zhang is a stronger puncher than Joseph Parker, but he's not as busy a puncher as Joseph Parker. So if he doesn't fluster Wilder with activity, Wilder may have that opportunity to let his right hand go.
That's why he didn't throw it with Joseph Parker. He was gun shy. There was so much coming at him.
Zhang is more economic and likes to work off the counter. He doesn't throw as many punches in a round. And tack on that Zhang, God bless him, he doesn't have the best engine either.
He fades down the stretch.
Those of you that have been following this channel well know that I'm no fan of Deontay Wilder. I'm no bomb squad supporter, but it would be short-sighted to count him out in this situation because styles make fights, and this is not Joseph Parker.
This is not a prolific puncher or an orthodox fighter. No, this is a southpaw.
And what do they say is the southpaw killer?
The straight right hand.
And what is Deontay Wilder's money punch?
The straight right hand.
So you see what I'm getting at, the angle of attack, and that Zhang is not as prolific a puncher within a round as Joseph Parker. If he doesn't fluster Wilder, Wilder may yet get the opportunity to let the right hand go. The right hand cannon! This announcement has given us a lot to think upon.
Not just the fights.
Thought with me and old Eddie would be working together. So this is an ultimate surprise right here. And like Eddie said to Frank, you know, it's a shame that we can't work together in the business of boxing. This is what it's all about. The best fighting the best promoters going against the best promoters, to putting fighters together. And I love the scenery. I love how Your Excellency, you know, Turkey come in and his staff, and they rearrange and change the way boxing is promoted and done. And I'm looking for that acting career after. Yeah. You don't have to get hit.
Right after the loss to Joseph Parker, Malik Scotch, Deontay Wilder's longtime friend and trainer, said that embarking on that spiritual journey via ayahuasca, what are psychedelic mushrooms that is supposed to allow you to reach some kind of a catharsis for an internal turmoil that might have softened Deontay Wilder up a bit. It might have quenched the flame in his belly, his fighting spirit, and his killer instincts, and he will need them
to beat Zhang
if he's lucky. Luck in and of itself is best described as when preparation meets opportunity, and he will have the opportunity to redeem himself if he can beat Zhilei Zhang and reanimate that age-old conversation, what could be that Anthony Joshua fight, that transatlantic fight between former heavyweight champions, because that thing's on life support right now.
To a lot of people, it's as good as dead, and some have already made up their minds. They don't think Deontay Wilder's going to win this fight. They don't think he's going to make it past Zhilei Zhang due to Zhilei Zhang's killer left hand. For Wilder's right hand cannon, Zhang's got some kung pao of his own.
There is a noticeable discrepancy in size between the fighters, even though they're both more or less eye level to each other. Zhang is a beefier guy, a girthier guy than Deontay Wilder, whereas Deontay is a lot more lean, sometimes weighing in as low as 215 pounds.
Where Zhang weighed in at a whopping 291 pounds in his last fight.
A noticeable size advantage, not in terms of height or length, but weight, and the weight behind the punch, that if he does get in with a straight left hand on Wilder, Deontay Wilder may not be able to absorb it. For years now, I've said that I don't trust Wilder's chin. I don't trust Wilder's punch resistance. Over the years, there's been evidence that this guy don't take the best shot. He don't take the best punch. He almost got knocked out by a journeyman in Harold Sconiers.
Got wobbled by another journeyman in Eric Molina.
And of course, the last two Tyson Fury fights. That even if Deontay Wilder didn't have shaky punch resistance before those fights, he does now as a result of them, as those fights went on round after round after round, and he's getting hit, he's getting dropped, he's getting pushed around.
Bullied.
It took something out of him.
And if Zhang catches him with that straight left hand, he may not be able to absorb it, so there is also that to consider. Wilder's headspace, whatever little desire he has left in the sport of boxing and what he wants to do, and how, if he wins, maybe we do get that Joshua versus Wilder fight, but if he doesn't,
He'll retire.
and that fight will forever be remembered as the one that got away.
The way boxing works, you're always one performance away from your best night or your worst. So he could lose or he could win. But if he wins and he knocks this guy out,
He's back in the game.
we'll see what happens as well as what has already happened. Because if you would have told people 5 or 6 years ago that Deontay Wilder would be rubbing elbows with Eddie Hearn of all people, they would have thought you were crazy.
That those two are gonna do business together.
It always felt personal between them. Team Wilder, Team Joshua. No, it wasn't just about platforms and promotional politics and sides of the street. It always felt personal.
Now he's come full circle.
Because he's working with Eddie Hearn now, alongside him, representing Matchroom in this tournament. He's come full circle, and maybe that heralds the end. The end for Deontay Wilder.
What?
That it must be.
Pigs must be flying.
Why?
He's working with Eddie Hearn. He's fighting under the Matchroom banner. He is representing them.
Now, where it may have been personal for Deontay and Team Wilder, with Eddie it's a little different. Eddie's always going to do what's best in the name of business.
What's best for business?
He made Deontay Wilder the captain of the team, the captain for Team Matchroom in this tournament, and I've no doubts he's having a lot of fun with the optics. For those who said that he would never make it in America and he doesn't know what he's doing.
People like Leonard Ellerby, who always had something negative to say, talked him down, his ability to promote as well as the platform, his fighters fight on.
What did he call it? Dead zone. Dead zone. Yeah, that was funny for about 5 seconds till you and your buddies got kicked off of Showtime.
What now?
Backtrack. Kicked off of Fox, then kicked off of Showtime the following year.
What now?
Several of the PBC's fighters have already started jumping ship. Jumping ship to box on the platform that Leonard Ellerby not that long ago was trashing. Michel Rivera, he left the PBC to go box on DAZN. Subriel Matias,
Same.
he signed to Matchroom.
He left the PBC to go to Matchroom.
Jaron Ennis recently became a free agent. He had a choice. He could have signed to the PBC. He chose to sign to Matchroom.
No, Wilder's signed to Matchroom. He basically is. He's basically their fighter.
What used to be one of the PBC's flagship fighters is now set to earn with Hearn. I wonder what Leonard Ellerby has to say about that.
As well as Wilder's supporters, his fans, and those content creators that talked him up while he was at the PBC. Are they going to talk him up now? Are they still going to support him?
The card in its entirety, and Wilder's addition to it, is all cause for celebration that old rivals like Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren are working on a show this size together. If you're a boxing fan, then it's cause for celebration. But I've told you, year after year, a lot of these guys and the content creators that they subscribe to, they're not actually boxing fans. And the content creators themselves, they make money off of the division, the politics, and the arguments. They don't actually want some of these fighters crossing streets or fighting each other.
Because if they do, and their guy loses, they don't get to keep making money propping up narratives about him.
So while some of us may be celebrating this momentous occasion, those guys aren't. Trust me, they're not happy.
Now as it pertains to the main event of that same show.
It's a strange format for the whole thing, because where the Matchroom versus Queensberry show is likely going to land on the DAZN platform here in America, the main event, the only place you can see the main event, is on ESPN+.
As Beterbiev versus Bivol will be a special one-fight broadcast from Kingdom Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. They're not showing the undercard, but you can bet your bottom dollar that Matchroom and DAZN will.
Why are they doing it like this?
It's the same card.
It's likely because The people at Top Rank wanted the exclusive rights to the main event, the exclusive rights to Beterbiev versus Bivol, but the people at Matchroom and DAZN, they wanted the exclusive rights to the tournament to be able to show that to their subscribers here in America. So they split it as to not have two separate platforms airing the same card and potentially cannibalizing the viewership. They don't want to have to split the views, split those eyes.
This way they don't have to.
Once the Matchroom versus Queensberry tournament is over, all those viewers here in America can head right over to ESPN Plus to catch the main event, and ESPN, they don't lose nothing from it because they're not dividing those viewers between themselves and another platform.
The press conference.
Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev aren't the talkative types. These are not the kind of men that mince very many words, if any. Granted that you're likelier to get a little bit of light ribbing from Artur than you would from Dmitry.
He took a little jab at Dmitry.
But Dmitry didn't sweat it. He was as aloof as he always is. He was aloof ahead of the Canelo Alvarez fight. He was aloof afterwards, and he was aloof at the press conference for this one. And as stated, these are not the talkative types. These are not the kind of guys that are going to put on a show at the press conference. They'll put on the show when they're in the ring, where it matters most. Too often I see Americans focused on the talk and the banter, the back and forth. What happens at the press conference?
Who cares?
How many times have you seen fighters like Adrian Broner ham it up at a press conference just to stink the joint out the night of the fight?
Enough already.
Big talk pales in comparison to big action the night of, and that's what I expect from the both of these guys who seemingly have a mutual respect for each other.
They're not hurling insults.
They're making empty promises about how I'm gonna do this to the guy and I'm gonna do that. It says more with what they don't say about the other guy than what they do. Power of silence.
Better show that guy some respect.
Consummate professionals, the both of them, that you know are going to take the assignment seriously. They're not going to approach this half-hearted. They are all in.
Who wins?
I've seen several training videos of Dmitry Bivol in preparation for this match, moving the way that I expect him to move, back and forth on his toes.
That's the ticket.
He can't match Artur's strength punch for punch, but when has that ever been Dmitry Bivol's calling card? I think his best bet in this fight is that he's a little younger, a little fresher, a little faster on his feet, with faster hands. And if he can interrupt Artur Beterbiev's rhythm by meeting him
In and out, on your toes. Straight punches from the outside coming in, and you don't sit there too long.
a balanced approach of both offense and defense, because the mistake that a lot of boxers make with a pressure fighter is they start moving lateral, and before you know it, the pressure guy's chasing you. He goes from chasing you to bullying you around. You have to assert yourself in spots.
Yep.
Pick your moments.
You can't just run.
Creating space and thinking that pot-shotting from the outside and throwing one or two punches at a time is going to keep that pressure fighter off of you. It's not.
Dmitry's best bet to win this fight is to stay with Artur Beterbiev. Not so far on the inside that he's trading with him on the inside, but not so far on the outside that Artur has to chase him.
That's his best bet. In and out, on your toes, interrupting his rhythm.
What's Artur's best bet?
Break his face!